Yo, what is up, Ramley? What's up, Los Angeles? Live, instant reaction, tough loss for the Rams in overtime, 26-20, hard-fought game, fun game. I'm sure a lot of fans were probably pulling their hair out, but Rams battled, showed some grit, came back, showed heart. We'll talk some positives, obviously talk some concerns and kind of future outlook and all these injuries and whatnot. But I got a special guest joining us. So first and foremost, let's Coach Rowe does the Salute to Troy podcast with me. So he does our USC stuff here in the LFB network, but also a Rams fan. I wanted to join up. What's up, Coach?
How's it going? How's everything been going since since I saw you 12 hours ago?
Yeah, 9 a.m. We did our USC live
Yeah,
Victory Sunday after
yeah,
USC won last night, and here we are back 12 hours later doing Rams. So
yeah.
good seeing you. And
I'm doing good.
yeah, Skinny, what's up, brother? How we doing?
Oh, doing all right. This was a fascinating game. Completely a lot of things I was not expecting to see, but really fascinating. I mean, we can put it at that.
yeah, fascinating is a good word to put it. I mean, Coach, I'll start with you. Like, do you feel good after this game? Like, based on the injuries, the fact they battled, brought to overtime, is that a positive? I mean, that is obviously a positive, but is that like a good building block, or was there more red flags out of this than maybe positives for you?
So the positives are that they were able to compete while they were super injured, right? So they lost their number 2 receiver, they lost their offensive tackle, right? And then they had a third string guy in that Aiden Hutchinson just beat like a drum on the baseline. But the fact that they were still able to compete with injuries on offense, I mean, so you do see the positives. I haven't looked at the exact numbers, but the defense is really competitive too. They're not as bad as everybody think. I think it's just one of those things that's going to have to come over time defensively with the Rams because it is a new defensive coordinator. There is a little bit of new scheme to it. There are some new players. So a couple of those things are going to happen, but positively, they're not in a bad place, but there's a couple of things that they will have to fix in order to achieve the goal that they want to achieve, that the standard has been set for them.
Yeah, I think there's a lot. We'll get into it. A lot that needs to be kind of addressed. But before I give I don't want to go into a monologue. But Skinny, what do you think overall? I know we were talking the whole game, and it was a fun game. It was a fun game and stuff like that. But just your initial kind of reaction, I guess, to the loss.
You know, coming into it, I said this would have to be a Stafford-led game, and I feel like he was on fire tonight. I think he put the team on his back. I think it came down to he and Kupp once Puka Nacua went out. Can't remember exactly how many catches he ended with, but
14, I think, or
14, which I think ties the most of his career. 21 targets. Jared Goff only had 28 pass attempts in this game, so he was targeted just to almost as much as they were throwing the ball. And to that point, the Rams are really lucky that the Detroit Lions decided to start throwing the ball instead of keep running the ball, because the Rams could not stop the run. We saw it perfectly on that last drive where they just could not. They were just getting pushed around by a bigger, more physical line.
Yeah, they wised up in overtime and went back to what was actually working, running the ball. We say it all the time, right? Like, offensive player calls try to get too cute sometimes. It's like, what if it's working? Luckily, they didn't, and that's what got to overtime. So, yeah, I want to start with pause. Let's get in. Everyone join and thanks for hanging out. Bring your comments, thoughts, concerns, questions, excitement. I mean, it was still a fun game, but not to pat myself on the back. I'm pretty sure. Do you remember what your score prediction was in our preview show?
It was 32-30. I thought it was going to be a much more high scoring game.
You were doing I think mine was 27-20, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, you said, yeah, that's right, because you had them covering. So, yeah.
I think it was 27-20 line. And anyway, not that it matters. Would have much rather the Rams win than have my score get right. But no, so I think the good is Stafford looked fantastic, as you alluded to. I saw a few non-Rams fans even tweet like Stafford looks like the best quarterback in football based on week 1 performances. And he played like it 34, 49, 317 yards, touchdown, did have that one bad interception, couple missed opportunities. I think of that one third down on it was either the last drive in regulation, the second to last drive when he stepped up. He was obviously pressure, but stepped up in the pocket, had Kupp open, and just overthrew him a bit. And you feel like if he got that could have really, changed the outcome of the game potentially. But overall, played fantastic, being the fact that he was behind the offensive line that he was. I mean, you think about, you have a third string left tackle with AJ Akuri. You had a $16 million guard that moved to center that then moved back to guard. So then you had a rookie center with a backup right tackle. I mean, it was just 2022 vibes all over again. So the fact that he was able to play the way he did, fantastic. Cooper Kupp just reminded the whole world that he still is probably arguably top 3 receiver in football. Dude is unstoppable, and everyone knew he was going to get that ball every time. You mentioned it, 21 targets, and they still couldn't stop him. And that toe tapping catch he had down the sidelines was pretty incredible. And I thought the defense, they battled their butts off. I thought schematically they looked pretty good. Chris Shula called a good game for his first ever defensive coordinator professional football game, regular season, I should say. I thought he played well. I thought tackling overall was fairly good. Some miscues here and there. Quentin Lake, I thought, played great in his first kind of like starting role in that star. He had that ever important tackle on that last drive that ended up holding Detroit to the field goal, which forced it into overtime. So, I thought that was really good, and just the way they battled all game. So, it showed late that they were mismatched when it came to just the trenches, to maybe the talent discrepancy, but you can't knock the heart, the will, the grit, the passion. So those are my positives before I get into some worrisome stuff. But Coach, anything else to add positive wise?
No, like I said, positively, they were able to compete. At least they can compete, and they were able to compete with a lot of injuries, and that's always a plus. Injuries always heal. As long as they're not season-ending injuries, they always heal. And it's only week 1, and they have 16 more games to go. So it looks like they'll be able to get back, and if they could get things together, they'll be able to be a competitive team. I don't know about Super Bowl bound. They have some things that they need to fix Super Bowl bound. We'll probably get into that, but they could be a playoff team.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, that you have the no quit. That's number one. Now the thing, and I was it in our other chat, Ryan, that we were talking about this, but like the way they played was great and admirable, but it's not sustainable through 17 games. And you can play with that grit and that mentality to stay in these games, but if you do that every game, it's just going to wear, and eventually you're going to get exposed like they did in overtime. So, concern wise, and again, I don't want to turn this into a hey, we told you, but this was like the questions we had been asking all offseason, was how this defense would look down the stretch in trenches against elite offensive lines like the Lions have, like the running game they have, how this offensive line would look when they spent all this money and yet couldn't get healthy, and they went after players that had already had injury history. So Skinny, you first, like what stood out in this game as like all right, this is what we were asking all offseason. It didn't really answer those questions.
Well, it's about where they ended up last year. They went on that great tear, almost going 8-0 to end the season, just losing one game to a very good Ravens team. And they did it on Kyren Williams' back. And we didn't see that today. That was kind of what we all expected with this updated line, getting Jonah Jackson in there, paying Kevin Dotson. Third most expensive line. I keep hitting that point.
Not the ones that played tonight, but it's supposed to be the third most expensive.
Yeah, certainly. So, I came into this game expecting to see a lot more Kyren Williams. I expected to see, a lot more bullying from Steve Avila, from Jonah Jackson, from Kevin Dotson. I understand that they were down on the tackles, but where Kyren Williams really made his hay last year was in between the tackles, specifically running behind Kevin Dotson. And Sean McVay just went away from that game plan pretty much entirely. We talked about what we got, Matthew Stafford with 49 pass attempts. Yep. Kyren Williams had 18 rushing attempts. So I get it. This is a passing league. You got to do that, but are they able to do that? Are they able to have that same running game that they had that fueled that beautiful run that got them into the playoffs last year?
Well, I think what was frustrating about it, and I get it that they already started handicapped, if you will, with both starting tackles out just to start the game, then obviously losing Avila and Joe Noteboom during the game. But the whole mindset based on the draft, based on offseason acquisitions, based on kind of the talk was that this was going to be a kind of run first, protect Matthew Stafford. Obviously, you have one of the greatest arms in football at your disposal, but they wanted to run the ball, establish the run, kind of become this smash mouth team. We joke all the time, Coach. You haven't obviously been on the show much, but we joke that this went from like a glitz and glam team to more of a bring your lunch pail to work team over the course of the end of last season, because that's the kind of the identity they wanted to create. And then tonight they just reverted all the way back to just that glitz and glam and not being that smash mouth. And obviously, if you don't have the personnel up front, you can't necessarily do that. But it's like they didn't even try. I mean, the first drive, what was it, Skinny? Like 8 passes to 1 run on the first drive.
Well, I said it in our chat. It was 12 passes to 2 after the first 2 drives. So I mean, yeah, I think that sounds probably about right. And I think that first run was about his only good run for the game.
Yeah, I did find it interesting. They ran a lot of pistol. Thought that was kind of fun though. A lot of pistol formation. They did that some last year too, but yeah, I mean, obviously, and I'm seeing comments here, it was a lie. McVay was never going to run the ball. I mean, it's not a bad point because he hasn't a ton. Like there's been games where he dedicates, and how many times did we say, like, if the Rams run the ball 30 times, they're like 98% win percentage. It's unreal how much they win when they run the ball 30 plus times. It's just rare that they hit that number. And it looks like now that they're a little banged up, they're going to revert back to pass. Coach, let me ask you this, because you would know probably even better than us. When you have injuries, I know you coach defense, but you're a smart guy, so you can answer this. Put you on the spot.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you're pretty smart. I think so. When you're banged up on offensive line, do you want to put those guys in a position? Like, is it easier for backup? I'm trying to think how to like phrase this question. Is it easier to run the ball with your backup offensive lineman or force them to pass protect 49 times against elite pass rushers?
Well, it all depends what type of run you're trying to do, and which is interesting because Sean McVay is a West Coast based guy, and when you think about the roots of the West Coast, you base your pass off the run game, right? And he's an outside zone or a wide zone as they call it. So, and now they're talking about reverting to power, which it's a little bit harder to teach, especially the guys that's been there, because you have to find your track and look up the numbers and things like that. So it is hard if you just go get a backup tackle. It's hard if you go get a backup guard, because normally what you want to try to do is what you call a swing guy. So you want to go get a backup guard center. You want to go get a backup tackle guard. That way you really don't lose a step. And then, like, I remember they were talking about, well, they had to move somebody to center and then move somebody to guard. When you start moving all those people around and they're not really used to that position, and I don't know, and I don't study the you know me, Ryan, I don't really study rosters. Like, I could get deep into the X's and O's, but I don't really study the rosters. But
you didn't study the USC roster that much.
Yeah. So, like, it's funny, Skinny. I say, Ryan, who's number 14? Yeah, that guy. He's pretty good. No, but I don't know if their backups are swings, and if their backups are swings, it'd be a lot easier. I see the issue is that now you're talking about throwing a guy in. It's like a pitch runner. That's the best way I could put it. It's like a pitch runner, pitch hitter. You're sitting there, you're not hoping to play, and the next thing you know, I got to protect the backside of your franchise quarterback against one of the top defensive ends in the game. And now I'm going to throw the ball. Let's say I'm going to throw the ball another 29 times, and I got to keep him from getting sacked. It's pretty tough, and it's pretty hard to do, especially if you don't know in the NFL, the backups don't practice. That's what a lot of people don't know. Once the game comes, the backups don't practice. They're scout team players. Only people who practice the game plan are the starters. That's it. So he probably didn't practice one rep and then wasn't even close to practicing one rep, and he just was the Lions' offensive tackle this whole week. And the next thing you know, he has to know the game plan, and he has to know the slide protection to be able to protect. Now, it's very fixable, and Sean McVay gets really stubborn, right? And he should have gone to what is called 60 protection, and 60 protection is just one more blocker, not with the tight end, but he should have used the back. He should have kept Kyron Hudson in and used him to help and assist with Hutchinson, and then used them to chip off, and then he would have had a dump off. But he didn't really do that, and it kind of put him in a bad position. So, um, to your question, yeah, it is kind of hard, especially when you don't practice the game plan and you have no idea what's going on in the game plan just from being in meetings and reading the playbook. So it is kind of hard to jump in there and be able to do that.
So harder to run block versus pass block?
It's harder to pass. It's harder to pass.
So theoretically, they should have run the ball more.
They should have ran the ball more, yeah. But
that's
the
point I
problem,
was trying to make.
Yeah. Sorry. They should have ran the ball more. But the problem with them now is they're trying to become a gap scheme team. They're trying to get out of the zone scheme. So then it starts to become a little bit different too, because you have to figure out, you have to ID people. You got to figure out who to block. You got to remember, with gap scheme, you're leaving a guy, so you have to pick up a guy. So everybody blocks down one. So am I gap seal hinge? Am I going next level to seal? There's a bunch of stuff that happens in that gap scheme compared to zone schemes. Like, oh, there's a dude in front of me, he's on my inside, all I have to do is just block him off, and if the play goes, I could get to the next level and help. There's a lot of differences between gap and zone scheme, so it is a little bit harder, but it's much easier to run the ball and get out of the game and keep the clock running than pass the ball against one of the top defense edge rushers in the NFL and constantly stopping the clock. So yeah, it is easier to run. I'm sorry about that.
No, you explained it great. I was just making sure you let the people, good people know that that's the point I was trying to make. But no, you said something really interesting there that Skinny and I talked about, and Skinny, I'll toss to you in a second, because you mentioned this also during the game. You know, the center almost always is the one calling out the protections at the line of scrimmage. And what concerned us last week when they made the switch to say, oh, Jonah Jackson's going to move over to center and we're going to move Avila back to guard is, okay, all training camp, the thought was Avila was going to be the one making those checks, calling out those protections. And then all of a sudden game week, basically make the switch back to Jackson. And then obviously in this game, make the switch back and put Bo Limmer in at center, who had a great preseason, but still a rookie. And Skinny, you said you noticed like Kevin Dotson even was very vocal on the line, calling stuff out, because clearly there wasn't that captain, if you will, on the offensive line that was able to call that out. And that was going into the game a concern for us. Like, this is a really quick switch. Yeah, sure, he can snap the ball and he can probably block guys, but there's a lot more pre-snap that comes valuable from the center position, that making the switches is just seems too quick to go up against this defensive line. And so I'll toss to you, Skinny, because you're the one that brought that up. Like, how much did you notice that as an issue with this offensive line?
Yeah, I just started noticing Kevin Dotson, who's the right guard, out there pointing. You know, that's how you know offensive lineman's communicating with everybody as he's pointing. And I was like, you don't see the right guard doing that terribly often. You see that centers doing that regularly. And you're just putting something onto Kevin Dotson's plate. He's obviously played phenomenally last year at the very least. And it's similar to what Sean McVay said when they brought on Jerry Jacobs when Darren Kendrick went out with an injury. You don't want to start moving around more responsibilities and putting more pressure on people. And he's specifically talking about injuries, so I guess it's at least a little bit relevant here. But you're putting more responsibility on a guy who's your best lineman doing what he does best, maybe not necessarily communicating and being the captain and playing as a center, just a little bit to the right. So, it's just something I noticed and I was curious about. And I don't know if you have any experience with that, Coach, but it's a whole added responsibility for a guy that's used to not having to do that.
So that was going to be my question. Was he originally the one that ID'd the mic? But the only thing I could come up with, and one of the things I'm going to tell you is I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know what they're talking about. So this is the only idea I can give you. It was loud in there, and I can't assume that they were going off a silent count. So it's easier for the guard to talk to the tackle than the center to ID the mic that's 2 spaces down. That's the only solution I could come with. The opposite guard might have been IDing the mic also. He just wasn't as pointing as much as Dotson. Dotson might have been pointing to help him out, because you got to realize that dude was injured and he wasn't very good. Like, he's going to be selling insurance tomorrow. Like, so you know what I mean? Like, he might have been pointing and the other side might have already had it down because they have the chemistry. So that might have been the object too. So that's the only thing I can think of, is that it's easier to talk to a tackle than a center to talk to a tackle because of the silent count.
Yeah, and I will say that the one silver lining on all of these injuries is that The starting left guard, Alaric Jackson, is not injured. He is only suspended for 2 games, so there is a finite period for that. Although he did have an ankle injury during training camp, so we'll see where exactly he is with that come week 3. So plenty of injuries. But on the other side, Warren McClendon was in for Rob Havenstein, who was out with an ankle injury as well. Puka Nacua goes out. I mean, it's hard to speculate the severity of injuries just from what we saw, but 2022 vibes real strong right now, and nobody likes that. So, I mean, you just got to hope for the best at this point until we find out more about the actual severity of these. But
I've got 2 more like doom and gloom points, and then we'll try to do some more, maybe some positive stuff. But and Coach, I want to ask you this specifically too, since you were you were at the college level, but still recruiting and roster building. There's been years with the Chargers and the Niners. I can think of specifically just because we're within LA, and obviously those teams we cover the Chargers, but Niners are very, I know, have a lot of friends, and there were many years when both teams have had a lot of injuries in the past. Chargers seem to always have injuries in the past. Niners went through a really big spell, I feel like 2-3 years ago, where they had a ton of injuries. And that was always kind of like an excuse. I'm not calling them out, but like fans were like, well, if you were just healthy, like, look what we could do. But they were always injured. And like, I kind of have this thought that there's flukes, and then there's maybe not culture, but there's actual decision-making, roster building, and practice regiment that can actually either aid or assist, I guess, in those injury continuances happening. And obviously in the roster building wise, it's when you draft or sign injury prone players. That's an obvious one. But then in the practice thing, it's like, okay, how do you practice? Are you practicing way too soft, so when you get to the game, it's very easy for these soft tissue injuries to happen? Are you pushing guys too hard? Are you pushing weight regiments where they're above their weight limit where they should be? So they're playing above their weight and they're actually hurting joints and stuff like that. And so I did a lot of research on it, and you looked at some of the Chargers in the past, and like Derwin James, for instance. Like, I was talking to an actual doctor 2-3 years ago, and it's like, yeah, he was probably playing like 15 pounds over what he should have been playing. And since he's slimmed back down, he's actually been relatively healthy over the last 18 to 2 years, 18 months to 2 years. And the Niners now have been relatively healthy, most recently. So I say all that because we can see this Rams right now as a fluke, or we can see it as did they poorly build this roster with players that have injury history? And we know for a fact that their training is pretty soft in terms of very light, no hitting. They don't play anyone in preseason. And so when you get in that first game action, was it just like that? I'm not saying the players were shocked, but that actual like physical change in that just causes these soft tissue injuries to happen much more frequently. So anyway, a lot of word vomit there, but
yeah.
Is there any relevance to that, you think?
So let's start here. The preseason is not their fault. It's scheduled by the NFL, and it's mostly regional. If you look at who they play in the preseason, they try to keep it regional, if that makes sense. They try to play
I just mean the fact the Rams literally don't play a single starter.
Oh, yeah. And we were actually talking about that, about like with the rookie quarterbacks. Like, a lot of people don't play their starters anymore, and they're not getting the game experience. Yeah. And the top quarterbacks I picked today weren't there. You're right.
Not even starters. Like Joe Noteboom is the backup and didn't play in preseason.
Right. He should have played in preseason today. Yeah. And so and then there was like a brag thing about how big the O-line is now. And it was kind of an issue that I brought up on my podcast, because SC gained all this weight. I'm like, well, I'm slightly worried because too much weight can mean you can move slow. That means you're bearing extra weight that you don't need, even though it's muscle. It had me a little bit worried. Neither here nor there. If you see an SC game, these dudes are flying around. They look really good. They might be bearing too much weight. Now, like I said, they're trying to change their run game up, and they're trying to go to this tough team, but they don't have they don't have the bark. They haven't built the bark. You know what I mean? When you think of Sean McVay's offense, you don't think of Jim Harbaugh's offense, right? Like, you're not going to think power and something tough. So you are right. Too much weight can be an issue. Not having a tough practice. One of the things that they say about the Chiefs is their camp is one of the toughest camps in the NFL, believe it or not. Andy Reid tells one. Dougie P, one of the toughest camps. Buffalo Bills have one of the toughest camps.
Detroit Lions.
Detroit Lions have a very tough camp. Even the Ravens have a tough camp. So it's something that you just it's a mentality that you have to build. And when Sean McVay was first hired, and some of my good friends, I was like, I just don't like the culture that he's presenting, because a lot of players like him, but it's not football. You know what I mean? He wants to be liked, but they won't run through a wall for him. Like, I love him as a coach, but they won't run through a wall for him. Okay, you use the example Aaron Donald. Aaron Donald's an outlier. You know what I mean? Let's use Rap. How much would Rap run through a wall and put his body on? Even though he's gone now, but how much would he have put his? You know what I mean? Those are the questions that you have to get. And when I say that, let's use this comparison. How many Chiefs will run through a wall for Andy Reid, and how many Rams will run through a wall for Sean McVay? And I understand the culture is good, and I get where, but just think about that. Who will run through a wall for Sean McVay? Who will run through a wall for Andy Reid? Those are things. And so to answer your roster building question, I had the privilege to coach with Cam Cameron. Cam Cameron, Super Bowl winning offensive coordinator with the Ravens, very good guy. He was the head coach of the Dolphins, didn't pan out very well, and pro experience. He said, when we build a roster, we compare it to the best team in the NFL, and how much better are they at those spots, and how close can we get to those spots, right? So if we use the Rams, the best team in the NFC right now, on paper, are the 49ers and the Eagles. So if we go and look at the roster spot for spot, how many spots are they better than us at? They're better than us in the O-line. They're better than us at the linebacker spot. They're better than us at the receiver spot. They're better than us at the running back spot. We're better at quarterback. We're better at defensive backs. A couple of those positions, they're better than us at defensive line right now. A couple of those positions really matter. They're O-line, D-line, linebacker, right? The receivers and the running back, the guys who score, right? We have the better quarterback. They didn't build the roster to win the NFC West and to win the NFC. They built the roster to try to change it, but they never took into consideration what they have to beat. Now, I'm not saying this isn't a playoff team, but this isn't a Super Bowl team either, right? They're good enough to go to the playoffs. We just saw that because they just competed with the Lions. But are they really good enough to beat the 49ers? Are they good enough to beat the Eagles? They didn't do that to put their roster in a position, and depth matters. And we talk about depth all the time with Salute to Troy. How good is their depth? A good example is the Ravens. Ravens preseason, they always say there's like 50 scouts here trying to sign the guys that get cut. The Chiefs also have the same problem. There's 50 scouts at the preseason games looking at the guys that they're going to cut because their depth is so deep. If somebody gets hurt on the Ravens, it's like nothing ever happens. You have to create that depth, and I don't think the Rams signed the depth. Depth always mattered, even though it's a 53-man roster and it's a little bit tougher. I've always built unlimited rosters, right? Because we have this amount of scholarships, so we can fill it. But 53 is a little bit tougher. But who's the next best person out there that is a Band-Aid, which we call, like, you could put a Band-Aid on, he plays 3 or 4 games, you never even notice that our guy was out, we get back in and we get so much better. That's what happens with the 49ers. That's what happens with the Chiefs. That's what happens with the Ravens. That's what happens with the Eagles. Those Band-Aid players could play 3-4 games, and the Chiefs, Eagles, 49ers, Ravens are still competitive. But when those dudes come back off injury, they go light years ahead because their starters are so much better than the depth, if that answers your question. Does that answer, or was it too deep?
No. Yeah, I'll toss it to you, Ryan. I just think there was definitely some moves that we've seen that are like we unfortunately saw play out in this game. And what you said earlier, and I don't necessarily fully disagree, but I think most of these guys would run through a wall for McVay. I just think at this point, most of them would probably break a bone and be injured and out on the IR pretty quickly after. So based on that, but Skinny, any relevance to what I said in terms of just the way the roster
you guys don't agree. You guys don't agree what I'm saying by the look of my face, and I have no idea what I'm talking about, even though I got paid to coach. So I'm just reading the comments. These Rams fans are way different from SC fans.
Yeah. Well, the question was about how the team is currently constructed, and is that what you were throwing to me, Ryan?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's an interesting question with the 53. Everybody's got the same amount of money to work with. Everybody's got the same amount of players to work with. Um, you know, I can never tell if I'm just too close to this team, if I just am paying attention too much. But there are times when you look at certain positions and you go, if that guy goes down, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
And I don't know if every analyst looks at their team that way, but I've always saw this team as one working on a tightrope, on thin margins. That the plan that they lay out has to work. It's plan A. We don't practice F, we don't have a plan B. There's no papaya strategy for those F1 fans out there. It's plan A, or it's going to be tough. But I'm just going to go back to what I was originally saying was I thought plan A had something to do with Kyron Williams and Blake Corum, and that mitigates a lot of this. You saw the Lions' best drives where they took a ton of time off the clock and they're running the ball effectively, pushing people around. And, I think I'm changing the subject here, but I thought that was the game plan. And now we're back to the 2021 game plan where, Sean McVay openly said they could not run the ball in 2021 when they won the Super Bowl. But even watching the league this year, week 1 is so much different than 2023, with the amount of low scoring games. And there's a lot of milieu that we could dig into if we had a different podcast, but the league is changing. Defense has a bit of an upper hand right now with this kind of Mike McDonald, Jesse Minter kind of strategy playing out. And I thought the Rams were meeting that moment with how they were building their team. Big, bulky front, offensive front, couple of little powerful runners just gonna bust through those nice gap scheme duo run things. And so, for that team building, for that game plan, I like how they've built this team. Defense, that's a different story. Still have plenty of question marks on that side. But offensively, the game plan has changed apparently.
Yeah.
Can I ask this question? Because you guys have followed him more. I just want, what made him change from the zone scheme and made him go to gap scheme? That's the part that I don't understand. Like, he's had so much success in his career being a zone scheme guy, West Coast offense guy, which Harbaugh's are West Coast offense guy, but they just used gap scheme off of it. What made him go to gap scheme and switch from the zone scheme? Do you guys know? Or just he woke up one day and was like, I want to be a power football guy?
Yeah. And Skinny chime in too, but I don't know if there was a moment where he decided to shift. It just happened when he hired Michael Fleur and Brian Wendell as the offensive line coach. And I don't know if that was just a conversation they had based on the roster that they wanted to shift. But I can't remember an instance where he just said, like, this is why we're changing this mode. I almost remember it was like last year, week 1, like, oh, this looks a little different than what we've seen. And it just all of a sudden it was what it was. But do you remember anything differently happening, Skinny?
He likes to, kind of pack in around how he gets beat. So the Fangio defense shut him down in 2018. Goes out and hires Brandon Staley a couple years later, instills some of those influences into that. He's, San Francisco, the way they beat him is pushing him around in the trenches. And, I think he just got tired of that, and he saw that there was a benefit to that. You can take a ton of time off the clock, taking 4 yards at a time. Then that opens up the passing game in a different way. And last year when this team was humming, that's exactly what it looked like. So, I mean, I don't know exactly why. I do think that the league is moving in that way, where the Fangio defense lightens up the boxes. They don't like their linebackers. they for some reason, they don't like that second level guy. They don't believe that he offers anything. They lighten up the boxes, which, the analysts and the pundits will say, this team is daring this team to run. And if you can't meet that defense in that way, you have you're missing an opportunity there. And I've said it before. There's as an offensive play caller, you have all these tools in your belt, and if you're not using the right tool at the right time, you're missing opportunities. And he, like you were saying, he's stubborn. He leans into things so heavily. He was leaning into in 2021. He was leaning into the pass so strongly, it comes out that he just didn't believe in his running backs, and I think he wanted to put something back in that tool belt where he could use it. And I think that for the different kind of backs that you need for the different kinds of running systems, I think it's a little bit easier to find those gap scheme guys because they're just this is where the play's going.
Hit it.
Get there. There's no waiting around. There's no trying to figure out where you need to go. Just get there. And that's what Kyren Williams did.
Yeah. It almost, and obviously it's week 1. So there's a long time. And this team was 3-6 last year, right? Made the playoffs. So, this is a lot that can change. And I still want to believe, like what you were saying, Skinny, that the identity that we were kind of sold, which, we're not owed anything. I'm not saying that, but the identity that it seemed like this offense was building, not even seems, it's where they put their money in and their draft capital in, was to be this kind of running play action type team, take the pressure off Stafford. It almost just seems like because of the injuries that occurred, and I don't like using the word panicked. McVay is a great coach and play caller and he's been around long enough. But if we're being harsh, it almost felt like he panicked and was like, all right, I'm just going to rely on the arm of Stafford. Like, we got a third string tackle, as I mentioned, second string right tackle, rookie center. Like, I don't trust, kind of like what you're saying with the running game in 21. Like, I don't trust these guys to get it done in here. I trust Matthew Stafford. So we'll just drop back and sling it around the yard and see what happens. And guess what? They went to overtime against a Super Bowl contending team in Detroit on the road and played a very good football game. So I know this entire live show has been seemingly somewhat negative. In reality, they went toe to toe with this team, very, very injured, and still went to overtime. Kind of what we're alluding to is that's not sustainable over 17 games. And if that's going to be the identity of what this team is, this will not be a playoff team. Like, they need to get healthy, but B, they need to identify who they want to be on offense and defense and kind of stay in that lane. And if it's going to be Stafford's going to throw it 50 times a game, I don't think they're going to be a playoff team personally. That's just me. People can call me out all they want. I just don't think you can sustain that with the physicality of what these defenses, as you mentioned, Skinny, with these Jesse Minter defenses, these Mike McDonald defenses. Watch the NFL in week 1, some of the physicality of these defenses. And granted, there was a lot of rookie quarterback play today, so that made it look a lot worse. But you can have games like this. Can you have 10-game stretches? Last year, like you said, when they almost won 8 games in a row, it's because the running game was humming. They were really leaning into that and playing well. And then that opened things up for Matthew Stafford to be Matthew Stafford. So it's an identity they needed. They thought they were going to be, we thought they were going to be, I truly believe they need to do that. And hopefully when they get Alaric Jackson back in 2 weeks, Rob Havenstein hopefully will be good to go next week. We don't know the severity of Avila, but it doesn't seem like it's severe based on everything we've heard. So hopefully they'll be at full strength by week 3. And then it's like, okay, then we can really see what this is going. But yeah, I'll leave it at that on that. So one positive, we'll wrap up here soon. Any question? I see people chatting, but any questions you guys have or anything, drop them in here. But shout out Tyler Johnson. What a game, right? Tyler Johnson, Minnesota Golden Gopher. I thought he had a great game. Practice squad guy ends up getting in the starting. I thought he was going to break that one to the house there in the, what was that, late third quarter, early fourth quarter. Skinny, we praise him a lot. 63-yarder. Yeah. What are your thoughts on his game?
Yeah, no, it became quite apparent that the reason that he was in there behind Puka Nacua, which is great to see. I kind of thought that maybe Jordan Whittington would be in that after the preseason he had. But Tyler Johnson had a great game. And anybody that can be in there to take a bit of pressure off of Cooper Kupp, because even in this game, even with those 21 targets, I started to get worried about Cooper Kupp and his tender ligaments. And for all of our team building, hand wringing for this season, The one thing that the Rams seem to be able to do is find good receivers and at really good prices. Even Demarcus Robinson, who's playing on a 1-year deal, shoestring budget there as well. So they keep finding guys. They find Puka Nacua. We'll see what ends up with Jordan Whittington this season as a former 6th rounder. So yeah, I mean, you got to be super encouraged by, they're still good at what they do. McVay can dial up those beautiful passing plays where he just finds guys space and open room for them to catch and run with the ball. So you got to love that.
Yeah, let's answer this question from Steve. I think Bo Limmer has almost cemented his place as starting center going forward. What say you guys? Coach, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, I mean, if you play well, and it's still hard to determine what you're going to do with the offensive line, right? They're missing 2 guys on their offensive line. They're missing a backup, and it's 3 guys, right? They're missing the backup. They're missing a guy on suspension. They're missing a guy that
4
got hurt
guys,
today.
technically.
Yeah, 4 guys. So like, it's hard to say where they're going to be offensively and offensive line wise. But he played a very good game. You know what I mean? Like, it was just, is that the rookie?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he played a good game. He didn't give up any sacks. That's all that matters, right? Like I said about Caleb today, Caleb didn't throw any picks. He had 94 yards, but he didn't throw any picks. He kept the ball on the Chicago Bears side. So, I mean, it's a long way to go for him, but he did a good job. And I think it'll get better for him when he gets help. He didn't have any help today with the injury. So I think it'll be a lot better for him when he get help. And you'll see him play better with the experience around him. So, yeah, I don't see any reason why he would change it now.
Yeah, we talked about this, Skinny, 2 weeks ago, and it seemed almost laughable back then. But here we are, 2 weeks, and we kind of literally said the scenario. We're like, what if Bo Limmer is your actual starting center, and maybe they end up moving Avila to like a tackle? He played like some snaps at TCU. But anyway, your thoughts on Limmer and what he could be if these injuries keep coming up?
I mean, you kind of touched on it with your comment there. It's like, who are you going to move off? The guy you just signed for a whole bunch of money, Jonah Jackson, Steve Avila, who is, I mean, who knows what his injury is, but he was great last year. So, it could be worth a trade, to somebody that needs a center. But I don't think he's right. I think he looks great. I thought he looked fantastic. Didn't allow a sack. Need to see what he looks like in the running game more. Would love to see some more, tape on that. But great draft pick, great 6th rounder.
Yeah,
Center's the hardest position to play, by the way. Also, a lot of people don't understand that center is the hardest position to play.
I've always thought that.
It's legit the hardest, and you have to be the most athletic person, on the offensive line to play it, because you're IDing the mic, you're telling people where to go on the slide. If the quarterback, and a lot of times in the NFL, they have check with me's, or you hear them a lot of times saying kill, kill, kill. So in the huddle, they're legit calling 2 plays, a pass play and a run play. And whatever look they get, they're either going to go with the first play or they're killing go to the second play. Now the center has to tell the offensive line, hey, we're now running power to the left. Make sure you check him. There's the mic. Let's ID everybody and get it moving. I now have to snap the ball, which is 80% shotgun now. Either have to deuce up to the second level, either have to block down on a guy because somebody's pulling. Like, center is the hardest position on the offensive line. So for a rookie to do it in the 6th round, I mean, against this defensive line, I mean, that's pretty good. Keep it up. Let the rest of the line get healthy. Let's see where he goes from there.
Yeah, I mean, if healthy, it's a good problem to have. Four guys that can all play the interior. We haven't seen Dotson at center, but you basically have Avila, Jackson, and Limmer that can all play center or guard, essentially. So, I mean, those
are the swing guys that we're talking about. Now you're creating the depth, and those are the Band-Aids that we're talking about. So if one of them does get hurt and you have to use one of those guys that say Bo Limmer does get hurt, now you have 2 more centers. You just need to decide which one's the best one. It's a 2-week thing. You get back. Now you're way better. Oh, we got our center back. We could move all the guys into our regular position. So I guess I did know what I was talking about. Huh? You guys walked me right into it. Thanks a lot.
And if all goes south, they can call up Justin Dietich from the practice squad. Fight on.
There you go. And he was at the Collie last night. Saw him on the field. Said what up. He was looking great, wearing like a nice Hawaiian shirt, nice those like chubby shorts that are like short. Like, this guy's on the roster right now, looking great.
He made the practice squad.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's
Sure
pretty good.
As he should have. Versatile guy. So, yeah, hats off. Fight on, Justin Dietich. But all right, last one for me, and then you guys can toss anything else out. But I feel like we got to bring this up again. I hate being negative, but we got to talk Tutu Atwell.
2-2.
We talked all off season, year 4. Skinny, you and I talked on many shows like, is he worth the roster spot? We saw what Xavier was able to do as a special teamer and a receiver. I know preseason's not everything. You're not even playing with the starters, but he looked like a nice, versatile piece that had the ability to play on offense and special teams. Tutu makes the spot. We didn't see anything from him tonight. Special teams or 0 catches. I didn't tally up the snap counts. I don't know exactly how many snaps he played, but it wasn't many. And it's just nothing against the person. Great guy. We're always rooting for him, but continues to take a roster spot and continues to seemingly have 0 impact on the game. I'll start with you, Skinny. Just your thoughts on Tutu and the decision to keep him, on the roster this year.
Here's my cork board with the pins in it in the lines.
Always Sunny, Philadelphia guy.
Yeah. What? Tutu Atwell's on the roster. Xavier Smith isn't on the roster. Kyron Williams is returning kicks. It's like,
yeah.
Cut Tutu, put Xavier returning kicks, and protect your very important, supposedly, running back. That's all I could say about it. It's like, from a team play, 53 people on this roster. Everybody's got to contribute. Everybody's got to have a role. We don't know what his role is. I don't know. I don't know what else to say about it. So, yeah,
we said, like, on a positive level, even if he's not isn't coming up in the stat sheet, if he's at least clearing things out and being that weapon that teams fear and have to account for and keep a safety over the top that opens up the middle stuff, then fine. That's great. Be a decoy, a nice 2nd round pick, expensive decoy. That's great. But it's not like he's not even being used for that. Again, it's 1 week. We'll see if that changes, but I didn't see that all tonight. Coach, did you?
No, and he can't do that. That's why they don't do it with him. I'm just being honest. It's just he can't do that. The defensive backs are just as fast as him. He can't do it. Have you seen him do it yet? He's might have done it. I should say this. Have you seen him
supposed to do?
Yeah, but have you seen him do it at a high percentage level? When you be like, oh, it's time to take a shot. Here comes Tutu's play. Have you been able to see him do that?
No, that's what we've been saying a lot.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So my question for you is, here's my question for you. Are the Rams still in cap hell? Because I know for a little bit they were in cap hell. Have they escaped it?
Yeah,
they're pretty. Yeah, they're good.
So I don't understand why they didn't cut him, because the cap hit to cut him was $1.8 million, which is chump change when it comes to salary caps and things like that. So I don't know what his roster spot is, and for that is I think that's the one thing missing from this offense, right? And Super Bowl year, they had somebody to take the top off. When he first got there, they had somebody to take the top off. These past few years with Tutu Atwell, they have not had anybody to take the top off, and everything is intermediate routes. So when I say intermediate routes, everything is 10 to 20 yards. Tutu Atwell has no big plays over 20 yards. There's nothing to take a shot down the sideline. Cooper Kupp does it every now and then, but we just talking about a big play to a touchdown wide open. He burns everybody. They don't have that, and that's one of the key factors for the West Coast offense. You know what I mean? And when you look at it, Andy Reid has it. The 49ers has it, right? Who else is a West Coast offense guy? The Chargers don't have it right now, but I'm pretty sure the Chargers will get a guy who has it. Like, when you look at those,
technically have it with what's his name? Darius Davis. Yeah. To TCU.
Oh yes. So you know what I mean? Just real quick, I'm sorry. So the West Coast offense passing scheme is layered. There's a short route, there's an intermediate route, and there's something deep. And it's all based off of play action, which is why you need to run the ball. So you run play action to set up the pass. That's like the basis, very basic of West Coast offense 101. Now, yes, it has advanced with where we are with offenses today, but that foundation still stays there. That's why Andy and Kyle and Jim and John and Sean McVay run the ball a little bit more than the rest of the NFL. But they'd like to take shots. right? How often do you see the Chiefs take a shot? How often do you see the Chargers take a shot? How often do you see like the Ravens take a shot with like a Zay Flowers or something like that? How often did the Rams take any shots tonight? Just a straight go route of just going to get it. Can you remember the Rams taking a shot? That's
I can't remember any last year. Often.
You see what I'm saying?
So like forever, yeah.
They
We're on
need
the same
some
page. Just so
yeah,
you know.
No. It's just the question I'm just trying to explain to you. So like as soon as the Rams get somebody that they could take a shot, like i.e. first play of the year, I think Sean McVay's first year is when Deshaun Jackson got there and they ran the play action. Oh, it's Matt Stafford's first year.
Yeah,
they ran that play
21.
action. They very first play they took a shot, right? They need somebody that they could get to go take a shot, and they don't have that. Once they get somebody that they could take a shot with, their offense expands a lot, and you start to see more running. You start to see more passing because now you have to defend both. I want to mention one quick thing. Skinny T, you never heard me say this, but you can't never stop the run if you're not +1 in the box. Ryan hears me say that all the time, and I don't know why the NFL's never +1 in the box, and it just drives me crazy.
Well, to spin a little positivity into this whole thing, I'm on Ross St. Brown. 3 catches, 13 yards on 6 targets.
Yeah.
So you're just going because he's a Trojan?
No, it was kind of one of our keys to the game was, who do you keep in check on the offense? And Ryan would say, just let Amon-Ra eat. And part of it was I don't think Jared Goff had his best game.
No,
it seemed like he had some unforced errors there, but also I think you got to give credit where credit is due. I think that they moved him out of the slot quite a bit more than I thought they would, and that would have put them in the position to go up against Troy Reader, or Christian Roseboom, or Quentin Lake. Well, we saw Quentin Lake get cooked by Jameson Williams on that one crosser, but good on the secondary for shutting down one of the premier wide receivers.
Yeah.
Oh, speaking of that, the Lions were in West Coast and they took a couple of shots today. Yeah. You see that? And they one of their shots they took off of a play action. So like a lot of people say he didn't have time. The play action buys you the right? If they rerun, it freezes and buys you the time. You do it, you set up. There's footwork behind it. But even the Lions, who's West Coast, you know what I mean? Like, you use it at the time. Go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to shout out Jason. Love Jason, always one of our guys. And I'm not saying this to sound like I know more than anyone, and for sure I don't know more than you, Coach, but I think there's a misconception of how much time you need to hit a deep shot. Now, for sure, Stafford did not have a lot of time. I'm not saying the offensive line was giving him the time of day, but when you have that deep threat speed guy, you can release that within 2 seconds. And
catch and throw.
Yeah, it's like a 5-step drop, boom. It's not like the guy's standing back there for 8-9 seconds. You need all that time. It's usually a 5-step, sometimes 7-step drop. And I'm not saying Stafford had that on every snap, but there was opportunities to do it. They just didn't.
Or put it like this, the rule of thumb is when you're in the shotgun, you're already 5 steps, so you can catch and throw, right? So if I need a 7-step drop, I take 2 more steps and I can throw. If I'm up under center, there's 3, 5. That hasn't gone anywhere, right? So if I'm under center in tonight's situation, if it was me calling offense, I would have ran, and took the shot off the play action. Easy, just outside zone or any type of power play action. Just set up, turn around, and throw off the footwork, and that's 5, 6.5 yards. I just need him to go. I need to take the shot. The reason why you take the shot is it loosens up the defense.
Yeah,
the Lions were able to stay tight all day because there was nothing to keep them loosen them up.
Like,
yeah,
they weren't
pushing. Shot loosened. Yeah, definitely.
And just think mathematically about it. Right now, we're getting a real nerdy, but think mathematically about it. These top speed guys run their 40s in what, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4 seconds. Yeah. If you're giving 2 seconds to release the ball, which is that's a pretty quick pass rush if you're releasing the ball in 2 seconds. But if you're in shotgun with a 2 to 3 step drop from that, you got to release the ball before the guy's at 40 yards. You got to release it in 2 seconds just to meet him 40 to 50 yards down the field. And that's if you have a cannon arm to get it 40, 50, 60 yards down the field with only the best quarterbacks have. So 2 seconds is really all you need if you have the correct receiver and the correct play call to push the ball down the field. That's all I'm trying to say.
And if he's a speed threat, think about this. Oh, the Dolphins too with Mike McDaniels. They're also a West Coast team. If he's a speed threat, you give him the ball now, and he scares you. You know what I'm saying? i.e. Tyreek Hill. How did he get his touchdown today? All he ran was a curl, missed tackle. He went 80. You know what I mean? Like, so a true speed threat doesn't always have to be a shot, but it's always something that you have to pay attention to. Like, oh man, what am I going to do with this? Like, all right, I can't let him get open. So faster people loosens up your defense.
And that's what I think drives us crazy. And again, I hate bagging on people because it's not what I want to do, but these are professionals now. But that's what Tutu's supposed to be.
Yes.
But he's not. Like he's literally on the roster to do that. And yet we have literally never seen it. The Saints game, was that last year or 2 years ago? We had that 60-yard catch touchdown. And then maybe
he said, I don't remember.
And then maybe one against the Niners last year.
Here's the thing too. Yeah, here's the thing too, Ryan. You're gonna miss, right? And they missed on Tutu. And I understand where you're coming from. You're coming from the point of like, all right, you missed on him. Let's release him. Let's go find somebody that's good enough to do it so we can move forward. And
they do it with everyone else. Ernest Jones is off the team and he wasn't a miss. Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah. You never know what the front office. Yeah, you never know what the front office is doing. That's in all professional sports. You don't know what they're doing, and will never understand what they're doing. So don't even try to guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's our job, is to like talk and guess. But in reality, like, these guys are obviously smarter than me. I will always admit that. But in my little mind,
I don't know, man. I think we could go run the Giants front office. I don't know.
Thanks to Hard Knocks, thanks to that. Yeah, it's like maybe these guys aren't actually that smart.
No, but then like you go and you see the Giants, right? And you're like, all right, cool. Like, the Giants front office is complete idiots. And then you go and look at the Chicago Bears and you look at like the legitimate like process that they put together to try to create a good team. Like, Ryan Poles a great GM, and you understand what he's trying to do. Yeah. And like, I guarantee you after tonight, he's like, all right, our next goal is to go find the offensive line. We got the defense together. We got the weapons. We got to protect Caleb. We got to get him time to get the ball out there. Like, let's go get us offensive line. Guarantee you. The Giants, if it was the Giants, they would have just said, well, we gave $40 million to Daniel Jones, so I guess we'll be all right. So definitely, no.
Yeah. And I shout out Ryan Pohl because he got a lot of heat because he was in his first year when they took Trubisky, and he was seen as like a terrible GM, and he's really turned that thing around. So good for him. But that's off topic. Well, anything else you guys got, or else we can wrap up? We're pushing an hour here. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to add.
No. Thank you guys for having me. It's always good to see you, Skinny T. I ain't seen you in a while, man.
Oh, it's always good to be seen by you, man. We tried to have you on to talk some D-line specifically before the season, just because it's all brand new.
Ryan flaked on me. I told him to hit me up on a Friday. He never did.
What you talking about? Someone was out of town or something. I don't think I flaked.
No, I think you were in.
Just to tie this all together, USC Rams. I came across an interesting little trivia question. When was the last time the Rams drafted a USC Trojan?
It was 2013 TJ McDonald.
Any guesses?
Yeah, Ryan said 2013 TJ McDonald.
Ding, that's the winner.
I wouldn't know that. I don't know that stuff, Skinny. I don't know any of that stuff. I don't.
It's just incredible to me that, you know, this amazing school that's right down the block. So yeah, 2013 TJ McDonald, 2006 Dominic Byrd, and then before that 1986 Albert Watts, defensive back.
Oh, so the Rams did draft Dominic Byrd.
Trojans in the last 50 years.
Well, a couple in the 80s. So in the last 40 years, there's been 6.
50. So. We're in 2020. 50 years, 80s. That's like, oh no.
No, 40s, I was born in 83. I'm 41.
All right, my bad. You're right. I got ahead of myself there. But yeah. Well, hopefully that changes this year because the Trojans are looking back with talent level. So hopefully
we're not ready. We're not ready for any of them to get drafted yet. We only one.
I mean, in the future.
Oh, I'm about to say only one could go. We can lose Miller because we have a backup quarterback, but everybody else needs to come back.
Hey, how fun would that be if somehow the Rams get Miller Moss to be the heir apparent to Matthew Stafford? That'd be fun.
That would be fun.
I like that a lot. Like that a lot. Quick last thing. Do you see Kalen Bullock interception today?
Where's he at? Houston, right?
Yeah,
Hey,
just
you-
another product of
Yeah.
that Grinch almost ruined, but is actually a good player.
No, so all right, real quick. I'm sorry, and I know you had a long day. Me and Madman did a show, and we said the best place for him to go is to the Houston Texans because there's a lot of experience at safety, and he has a very high ceiling, and he'll be around good people that will make him very good. And he ended up starting. He's like starting and getting picks and
Starting
stuff.
got a pick in week 1. It's
I
a rookie.
called it. Like, God dang. Oh, by the way, Ryan Skinny T, if you didn't know, Lincoln Riley watches our podcast. And have Ryan tell you about it.
What is it, Troy?
He for sure watches it.
You know, I have a feeling that Les Snead watches ours. I've for a long time called the Rams Skinny the most influential Rams podcast.
Yeah,
There's certain things that we say, then like even the big names don't say it, and then we absolutely see it happen, and we're like, man, that's pretty. And it's a high percentage. Ryan, what do you say about 65% maybe? It's a high percentage of things we say that pop up, and we're like, that's really interesting. So,
I'm gonna have to start watching your show.
there you go.
I just think he watches our show. I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna die on that hill, and when I die on that hill, I'll die a happy man, even though I'm wrong.
Yeah, and I still think Les Snead watches this show too, Skinny, because we were, I don't want to say the only, but that I know of with like the Rams content community, we were the only ones during the draft that were like steadfast. Nope, they're gonna go defensive line or whatever, and they did.
We thought a lot too, but you know.
Yeah, I mean, we had a different player, but we had the position.
How did he do tonight? Did he do well?
Latu, actually, I don't know.
Oh, Jared.
No,
Verse?
no. Yeah.
He got a sack.
First got a sack, right? Yeah,
nice.
first half.
Is he playing backside or is he's front side?
Backside.
He's playing rush in.
I think so.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
I didn't expect him to be a rush in when he got drafted. I thought he was going to be a front side guy. I thought he was going to be an edge.
Well, yeah, he played hand in the dirt at Florida State, but they're having him more stand up LB.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
He got a sack.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, well,
Earn his money. All right, enough talking.
with
Enough
that,
talking, kids.
thank you, everyone. 250 in here throughout almost the whole time. We appreciate you. We know it's late, 10 p.m. for us Angelinos out here on the West Coast, which is, I feel like 10 p.m. is late for us Angelinos. Like all the East Coasters that were up till 3, like out here, it's like 10, 10:30, 11. It's like time to wrap it up. But thank you, everyone. Tough loss for the Rams, but you know, I know overall throughout this hour, we talked a lot of like concerns. I don't want to say negative, but just kind of concerns and red flags. But I think overall the Rams still have a lot of good things in front of them if they get healthy and then get that identity established on offense and defense. I think this is still a very, very good football team and can do a lot of good things this season. So we'll obviously talk about it all week long on the Rams Skinny on the Rams LAFB YouTube channel. So make sure to check that out and subscribe, please. LAFBnetwork.com is where you can find all of our Rams content. And for any Trojan fans listening, check out the USC LAFB YouTube channel with myself, Coach Rowe, and the Madman. And obviously all that can be found at LAFBnetwork.com as well. For Skinny T, for Coach Rowe, I'm Ryan Dowd. Thanks for hanging out with us on this Sunday evening.